We're talking stress and anxiety, what you can do to manage it. Probably one of the most useful things to keep in mind is that it's actually a normal and sometimes helpful response to the situation that you're having. One of the challenges of it is when it becomes persistent, you run the risk of basically draining your system. So, as an analogy, have you ever come off a motorway or a freeway driving the speed limit, and then you drop down from whatever your speed limit was to whatever the suburban speed limit is, and it feels like you're traveling at walking pace. It's just so slow. And basically your brain has got used to highway speeds and then is trying to adjust to slower pace. And this can be similar to what happens is when you're revving your engine constantly with stress and anxiety. When it stops, dropping back to baseline can actually feel like driving those suburban streets, as if it's all so slow, so low energy. And it can feel like depression. And it's really important to understand that you are not depressed. You are not clinically depressed. That's a specific set of symptoms. And if that's what's going on, you definitely need to go get some help. Talk to a professional. You don't necessarily need to be medicated. They did some research where they just had people to spend 21 days at the end of the day to write down 3 specific things that they were grateful for. So not just, another day I made it. It's like, today I am grateful because John said, "Good morning, how are you doing?" And it looked like he really cared. And I like being surrounded by people who really care. So a specific gratitude, 3 of them, 21 consecutive days. They did some research. It was as effective as Prozac. If you've checked out some of my other stuff, some of my other monologues, you'll know that awareness is a huge factor in this. So by setting a rhythm of 21 days of 3 gratitudes, you are drawing to awareness 3 things that were good in your day that you are grateful for. Because it's really easy when things are going to poop, it's really easy to think that everything has gone to poop. Whereas in fact, it may just be one thing that you are stressed about. And you may have become really, really good at stressing about it. You may be an expert at stressing about it. And so you're constantly sitting with your foot just gently resting on the accelerator. And if you ever get a break from that, some respite, it can feel like the engine has been turned off completely, and that can be concerning in itself. It can be a cause for stress. So just keep that in mind. Stress is a useful response to actual threats. Now, actual threats, the next level of that is a perceived threat. And so that's why we're in the food chain, right? We'd keep our eyes on the horizon and we go, looks like a saber-toothed tiger, better do something about it. The challenge is, and I made this reference in one of my other little monologues about a gentleman who was stressed because he had last year's model of car. This is not an existential threat. His ego, and again when I say that, it's not the Freudian version of ego, superego, and id. The part of him, the internal self-referential narrative, the blah blah that goes on, often constantly in the background, was making that a threat. haven't done any research, I would suggest that having last year's model of car is not massively challenging from a physical state, but it could be a very real psychological challenge. And when you're doing that constantly and then you stop, it can feel like it's all gone quiet. You've gone from 70 miles an hour down to 30. And that in itself can be a challenge. See it for what it is. It's some calm. Take the good bits, harness that, enjoy the downtime, the recovery. When you've got that contrast, then you can start to notice the signs that you're ramping up again, and you can start asking yourselves those, what am I thinking? What's actually going on here? And what can I do about it? And it could be your 5-3-2-1 breathing. Could be the progressive relaxation that I put up on here. Could just be the awareness that you are not under threat. And, as I say in another post, do something about it. That's the next step. So changing from passive to active, from victim to agent, because then you can start making the changes that are going to help you not have to go through that as often.